Hey there, business owner. Welcome to the Entrepreneur Evolution Podcast. This is our weekly episode, and I'm so happy you are here. Let's get started. Hi there, entrepreneur. Welcome to this week's episode of the Entrepreneur Evolution Podcast. I'm your host, Annette Walter. I'm a business growth coach and owner of a multi-million-dollar national company. And this is the place where you will grab solid gold nuggets of information to help you immediately implement in your business. Real talk and real-time live advice from business owners and entrepreneurs just like you. Today, I am joined by Hala Taha. She is host of the Young and Profiting podcast and CEO of Yap Media. The Young and Profiting podcast is a top 10 self-improvement podcast on Apple with over 1 million downloads. Most recently, Hala launched Yap Media, a full-service podcast production and marketing agency for top podcasters, celebrities, and CEOs. Hala started her career in radio production while in college at Hot 97 on the Angie Martinez Show. Later, she focused on an entrepreneurial endeavor, and she is just getting started. This month, she was featured on the cover of January's podcast magazine. She is going to share with you today implementable strategies for your podcasting and also your social media networking, specifically on LinkedIn. I know you will really enjoy Hala and all of the information that she shares. Her energy is simply contagious. Take a listen and let me know what you think. I'd love to hear from you, and I love hearing from you. All of the comments and reviews have been so kind and so amazing. Make sure you drop me a line in the reviews, rate it as a 5-star, and make sure you hit subscribe so you will be automatically alerted when I interview entrepreneurs like you every Tuesday and leave a business tip in 5 minutes or less every Friday. I can be reached at urock@iEvolveConsulting.com. Let's make sure we carve out some time to talk about you and your business and your goals for 2021. I'd love to schedule an empowerment session with you. All right, let's get started with today's interview. Here is Hala. I know you will enjoy this episode. Here we go. Well, hello, Hala. How are you?
Hey, Annette. How you doing? So happy to be here.
I am so happy you were here. I know you have such a busy schedule, and I'm grateful for your time today. You have such an amazing story to tell, and I know our listeners are just going to adore hearing everything that you have to share and learn so much from this powerhouse brand. You are the host of Young and Profiting podcast and the CEO of Yap Media, and honestly, a LinkedIn rock star, right? Is that a great summary or what?
Yes, it's pretty accurate.
And not only that, but you've done that kind of just as you've grown it on the side while juggling so many amazing things in your day-to-day, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very true.
So why don't you give us the nutshell version? Why don't you just start wherever you want to start and catch us up to speed today and walk us through your story a little bit, and I'll ask questions along the way.
Okay, sure. So I think let's start at college, because I think everything before that I was pretty average and regular. And then I think I really started to come out of my shell really in college. So in college, I got an internship at Hot 97. It's the world's #1 hip hop and R&B station. And I actually dropped out of school when they offered to have me work for the Angie Martinez show. And so I started as a production intern, which was in the corporate side. And then they moved me to the studio area, which was very reserved. Only 10 people were allowed there. That's where all the celebrities would be and that kind of stuff. And so they had me be Angie Martinez's main assistant. And I ended up dropping out of school because I felt like it was such a big opportunity and I wanted to be at the station every single day. And so I did that. I actually interned there for free for almost 3 years. And, I would make my money at night, hosting showcases and going to parties with the DJs and things like that, and worked at Hot 97 during the day.
Wow.
So that was an amazing experience. Like I said, I was working for free. And when a producer role opened up, and I was basically acting as the interim producer when one of our producers quit, I didn't get the job. They gave it to another guy who was like a few years older than me, also working at the station. And I was very upset because I felt like I was put in my dues and deserved it. And also felt like, I dropped out of school for this. And then like a job actually opened up and I've been hustling this whole time. How could you guys have not given me a job? So I was upset. I sent a bad text to the guy who got the job, who was my friend. He showed it to Angie Martinez and I ended up getting fired. So that was a devastating part of my life because my whole identity was tied to Hot 97, to being this like young girl who was doing these big things at this station. I was about to be the next Angie Martinez is what everybody told me. And they were like priming me to be a big on-air personality. And basically all of that went away and the DJ stopped taking my calls. Everybody pretended like I didn't exist. And I was just getting blackballed from that industry. And it was a very bad time for me.
What a lesson to learn, right?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yes. So that was tough. And then I was like, okay, I need to go back to school because I only had a year left or so. And I felt like I should get my education and not just like throw college away. So I went back to school. And at the same time, I started something called the Sorority of Hip Hop. And so my goal was to have a platform for women in the hip hop and entertainment industry where we could support each other and kind of level each other up. And so I started this blog site. It was called strawberryblunt.com. I was kind of a badass back then. And the Sorority of Hip Hop. And I recruited like 14 girls within 2 weeks. I put out solicits on Twitter, on Craigslist, and I got these girls and some of them worked at Complex, VH1, Def Jam. They worked at all these different jobs, and I used to work at Hot 97. And so I was the president. We started this blog site. And within 3 months, we were one of the most popular hip hop and entertainment websites in the world. Wow. And within 3 months. And so I learned this was like 2010.
Okay. Thanks.
This was like 2010, 2011.
Right.
So I started this website. I learned how to code on my own, learned how to build websites on my own, SEO, social media. That's really where I honed a lot of my digital skills is that time period and kind of having to learn it on my own. Like YouTube was my school,
Right.
And so I did that. We ended up hosting parties, doing online radio shows. We had that blog site, obviously. I ended up having 50 girls under me at the height of it. And it was like a big movement in the New Jersey, New York, tri-state area. So really cool experience.
And a revenue generator? Was the blog bringing in income?
Well, I mean, we were getting some ads. It was mostly hosting parties where we made money, but that was the whole issue. We were having a lot of fun. We were generating a lot of buzz. I wasn't really mature enough or smart enough to know how to really capitalize on everything that we were doing. Okay. We got approached by MTV. When we first started, they wanted to shoot a reality TV pilot with us. So they did something pretty small scale. We didn't get it, but it was right in the beginning. And we're like, hey, it's been a couple months. MTV already scouted us out and shot a pilot with us. What's next? Who cares, right? Then 2 years later, MTV approached us again. And this time it was like, hey, like this is for real. They made us sign contracts. I was the lead. They signed 5 other girls. They got us a studio on Broadway. They decked it out. They filmed us for like over a month or so. They filmed me at my parents' house. Like they filmed us at restaurants. So it was like a big deal, And so we shot this huge pilot and we even threw like a concert and did a dance and like it was this big deal, and got our hair and makeup done every day. And so me and the girls were so excited. We're like, finally we made it. Like finally we're going to get a paycheck that's consistent out of this. And like all this hard work that we did is finally paying off. And we were very excited. And then, they didn't give us the show after they promised us. After we went through all of that, they pitted us against each other. We fought so much to make it an entertaining show, and then everything kind of fell apart. I met with the girls. We wanted a break, so we pretended that the website shut down. We thought that we would just do it as like a prank, basically for our fans, and just so that we can have a break. And then we ended up just never starting it back up, and the sorority broke up essentially. Yeah. So I got my MBA. I got a 4.0. I thought that I was going to go into corporate and then just lead this normal life. I got a job at HP. I kept getting promoted. And then like 3 years into HP, I was feeling the itch. I thought, I really want to get back to my first love. I love radio. I love broadcasting. I just don't feel fulfilled. And I started a Young and Profiting podcast. And that's where I am today. Now, today I work full-time at Disney streaming services. I host Young and Profiting podcasts. We're a top 10 how-to podcast on Apple. And I also have a podcast marketing agency that I started this summer that is really scaling really fast. And I'm about to be a full-time entrepreneur soon. So very excited.
There you go. And that's one of the big reasons why I wanted you here today to share your story, because we have an audience of entrepreneurs at every single stage of the game. Those that are thinking about starting a business, those that have just started a business, those that are doing, the sideline hustle of having, where you are in corporate world, but then have this gig kind of getting rolling on the side, and what do they call it, the gigpreneur world or whatever.
Gig economy.
Yeah, the gig economy. And then others that have grown and sold, multi-million-dollar companies. So, but it's interesting because every stage of the game, you have something to share, you have something to contribute and something to learn. So how did you feel prior to going into getting your MBA and post, the sorority show breaking up? Do you still talk to some of those girls or no?
Yeah, so a lot of those girls are still some of my best friends, and which is really cool because and there were so many girls that there was like kind of cohorts and cliques, and so like the younger girls are still friends, and the older girls, which I was one of the quote unquote older girls because I was the president, and so like the older girls are still friends and the younger girls are still friends. So it really was a movement and a community, and those girls are kind of connected for life. So it was cool. I have no regrets about it. It taught me leadership skills. After that, I went on to multiple leadership roles within HP I was the president of the Young Employee Network. I was president of my alumni association. And so it really gave me that like confidence that I could be a leader, because I was leading all those girls. But when we broke up, I was devastated again. It was another one of those like really low moments in my life because I didn't go get a normal job after school, right? I graduated college. I have a really unique career in which, I dropped out of school. I worked at a radio station. Then I went back to school. Then I was an entrepreneur. Then I went back to school. Then I worked in corporate. So it's like I'm very like much like entrepreneur than non-entrepreneur and so on. And so I felt like a failure. Like I tried to be an entrepreneur and it didn't work out. All my siblings went to medical school and became doctors. And here I was, in getting my MBA and kind of feeling like I was starting all over. A lot of my peers who went straight into corporate jobs were already like, senior managers and things like that and like way ahead of me, and so I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm just starting from scratch. But I quickly rose up the ranks at HP, and it was because I had those outside experiences. I came in and I was like the most digitally savvy person by far on my marketing team, and I crushed it, because I had great networking skills and great digital skills, and everything else everybody learned in college or learned in the institution that they worked for didn't match to what I had learned by myself, like on YouTube and just like being scrappy. So it ended up being a blessing in disguise because I ended up quickly getting back to where I needed to be.
Absolutely. Well, you have that trifecta of being the visionary and being the implementer and then also being the networker. And, those three things of having those different character traits really and different things that are within you, they're so significantly different. You're talking innovator, and you're more of your social person, and then your actual like doer, right?
Yeah.
And most people really shine in one and then can dabble in the other, and you really thrive in all three. And that's amazing. It's amazing. So podcasting. What was I'm sure you get that question all the time, what sparked the initial vision of the podcast?
Yeah, well, so I worked in radio, right? And when I had the sorority of hip hop, we had online radio shows. So before podcasting, there was this concept of online radio. You would go into a studio, and the studio would have like a website where they would stream your show, and you would tell everybody, go to dtf.com or go to bottommusicradio.com or alist.com. and watch our show at this time, and you'd promote it on social media, and it was just like a blip in time, and it was your way of being on radio and having a show if you didn't have like if you weren't on like an FM radio station, right? And so that's what I did like my whole like for 7 years, you know, like in my early 20s, like that's what I did throughout my early 20s. That online radio shows just never took off. It wasn't my fault. It just never took off as a concept. It was very hard to get listeners. We had fans and stuff, but it just didn't take off the way like my podcast did. Mm-hmm. And so once podcasts started to become popular, I started Young and Profiting in 2018. Once they started getting popular, I was thinking like, wow, like I really need to get on this. I have broadcasting experience. Now I have business experience. How can I merge these things together and do something that's more meaningful? When I used to have my radio shows, online radio shows when I was younger, I would talk to like hip hop artists, celebrities, talk to them about their life, music. It was pretty shallow, you know, it wasn't that fulfilling or helpful for anyone. Like it was entertaining only, right? And so I really wanted to do something where people could benefit and learn from. And because I turned my life around, I went from making, you know, 20 grand a year, struggling 30 grand a year to, you know, breaking six figures like very quickly, you know? And so I wanted to teach other people how they could do that and believe in themselves and excel in life and stuff like that. So I kind of switched gears and decided that I was going to start Young and Profiting. The other story behind starting Young and Profiting is sort of like a revenge story. So
businesses are.
This is juicy.
Our first podcast is Sophia Maroon. She has a salad dressing, and her business would start like basically off of a bet that to her brother that she could do it. You know, I love it. So go ahead, tell us the revenge.
Yeah. And honestly, a lot of my successes really started off the heels of rejection and just trying to get revenge on whoever.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Fuel. It is fuel. That's why I started the sorority of hip hop. They fired me from Hot 97. Then like, so it definitely is fuel. So basically, when I worked at HP, I used to be really involved in employee resource groups. So what that is, it's like a community within the company that is for like a specialty diverse group. So for example, there's the Black employee network, there's the women's network, and then there's the young employee network. And all these big corporations usually have these types of support groups.
Right.
And so for Hewlett Packard, I started the Young Employee Network in New Jersey. So there was an office, and there was no Young Employee Network chapter, but they had them all over the world. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to start our chapter, right? At the time, our office was very divided. It was like the young people and the old people. There was no culture at all. There was no holiday party. There was no company picnic. There was no charity events, nothing. So I started all of that, right? Wow. And I started the Young Employee Network at that company, and I recruited all the young people, and it became this whole big thing. And I got so much visibility from the CEO and CMO, and they would give me budget, and I became like the face of the young employees in New Jersey, and then eventually in the whole company, because then I became on the global Young Employee Network. So then there was a point in time I was doing this, like basically having a job, was an entrepreneur within the company. I had the second job working, being like the face of the company culture, the face of the young employees, very involved, right? Spent a lot of my free time. It was a lot of work. It was a second job. I regret it. We'll talk about that, but it was a second job within the company. It was great because I got visibility, but it was sort of a waste of time because what did I get out of it in the end? Nothing, you know, other than just helping the company. So, like I said, I did all these amazing things. I started this event called HPE Spirit Week. And so we had 500 events all around the world. It was themed days. I had 700 people mobilized working for these events. And I was emailing the company every single day with like the agenda and all of that. And it was like this huge thing that they still do. And I started this, I created it, I thought of it, I started it, they're still doing it, right? And then there came a point in time when I wanted to be Global Young Employee Network President. I totally deserved it. I was the most qualified. All of my peers wanted me to do it. I had like 50 people submit videos nominating me, all this stuff. I was like, I had it in the bag. But the HR person didn't pick me. They gave it to somebody else who had basically no experience. And it was like a total slap in the face after me putting in so much work. So I was super pissed off. And I was thinking like, well, now I have all this free time. I thought I was going to be representing these 7,000 young employees all over the world. Now I don't get that anymore. and I'm going to start something else. I'm going to start something that's my own, that no matter what company I go to, no matter where I go to, it's my own and it's my own brand. And nobody can say you can do it or you can't do it. It's under my control. So I started Young and Profiting, and, it became pretty big pretty fast. I mean, I think right now we're way bigger than ever, and I think it's really escalating. But Young and Profiting, I had huge guests from the start, and a pretty big fan base from the start, and steadily grew it. And I'm just so thankful, that I did that. I'm so thankful that I turned my efforts into my own thing instead of putting my efforts and kind of draining myself volunteering for a company that, in the end kind of said no to me. And then the lady quit a month later. Could you imagine like that? So it's just funny how things go, but I'm so thankful for that. I'm so thankful I didn't get that presidency, because I would never have Young and Profiting podcast.
It's so true. And there is purpose in our path and in our past, and we don't see it in the moment. We really don't see it in the moment. And not only that, but the difference between corporate world, and I grew up in banking professionally, to start my career. The difference between corporate world and corporate structure is so severely different than the entrepreneurial landscape. And that's why I'm here today. I said, I respect the corporate world. I love the corporate world. I learned so much from it, but I am meant to be my own boss. I just am. And that's exactly what you're saying. And you have the freedom to really do whatever you want with your massive creativeness. You are such a big thinker and a big dreamer and a big innovator that these things just craft in your heads, and you can see them, and then you are making them happen. It's amazing. It really
thank you. Thank you.
So you have the podcast, and you're still with Disney right now. So how does that feel on the day to day?
Right now, I'm lucky that it's COVID. Mm-hmm. Like, I think I'm the first person in the world to say that, but like
getting busier, right?
It's because I have no more commute. Things are way more flexible. Mm-hmm. I just feel like because things are flexible, and a place like Disney, they would never want to lose an employee like me who has so much knowledge. Mm-hmm. And it's probably so hard to find new talent to train them up. Things have become more flexible for talent, for people who know what they're doing in a corporate job, because it's like, it would be very hard to train somebody up in this environment, only online, not in the office, all that stuff. So it's become more flexible. Plus no commute, plus limited social life. So now I have all this time, and that's why I was able to basically start monetizing everything that I'm doing, and start a real company, like a real revenue profitable company, where I'm able to pay like 15 employees in my business now. And it's just amazing. And I did that in like 2-3 months. And so I'm very happy that, I have all this free time, and it's been giving me the runway that I need to become a full-time entrepreneur.
For those that are in that situation where they are starting a business on the side and still working with corporate world, what's your advice about those communications and that transparency about how to and when to talk to your employer about what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, with Disney, I was very transparent. When I first got hired, I already had the podcast. And so I had to, when I was applying, I had to mention that it was mine and that I owned it and that it was, eventually going to be monetized. And so I had to document all of that. And so if you already have a business, before you get hired, they will already have visibility. Mm-hmm. But if it's not something that's in conflict with what you're doing, you don't have to tell them. I wouldn't tell them, honestly. I wouldn't tell them, because it's your business, it's your life, and it's not illegal to have 2 jobs. In the past, it was looked down upon to quote unquote moonlight, but that's not the culture anymore. The culture is side hustles, gig economy, and everybody knows that actually having a full-time job is more risky than having multiple income streams. It is. And so like, I think it's not really their business. If you do want to be transparent with your boss, let them know that like, hey, everybody knows what I'm doing because I'm so visible on LinkedIn and stuff. I can't hide it, right? I can't hide what I'm doing. And you will get jealousy. You will have people who think that you're not doing your work because it's impossible for you to be doing both and all of that. Right. But when you're a super energetic and talented person and smart person, hey, I'm not trying to be the CEO of Disney. I have a manager job, and honestly, I could be a director, but I I have my own thing going on right now. And so I know that like what I'm doing, I could definitely be a manager at Disney and do everything else that I'm doing. So it's like knowing what you can do. If you're not trying to get that promotion at work and trying to like become a VP or a CEO, and you're a manager, yeah, you have the time to start a side hustle, and it's in your right to protect yourself and have multiple income streams. So that's what I would say. And I think it's just about balancing your time.
It is. And there's so many different ways to be efficient and tools to use that when you can craft your time and be so useful and purposeful with it. And if you're doing a solid job in your position, obviously throwing out the HR card there, like check with your own company, right? Your own corporation, if they have any kind of internal laws or guidelines about that. But I think that those are really some good key points there on that. So let me ask you this before we get into LinkedIn and a little bit more about the podcast and your recent team growth, which I think was so creative the way that you grew that so quickly. When you had those quote unquote slaps in the face, right? The two in your past after when you were kind of on this evolution, did you go through the confidence repair? Was your confidence in the tank? And if so, I'm imagining it majorly was, because I've had those moments too. How did you repair your confidence and what did you do? And what would be your advice for those moments when people do have those like punches in the gut that you like feel?
Yeah. I think it's all about feeling passionate about something else and then learning everything that you can about it. I think that's really the key. So when I was let go from Hot 97 and I felt like my life was over, I found this other idea and fueled all my energy into that I wanted to start a platform for women. It was a noble idea. It felt good. It felt right. I learned how to build websites. I learned how to recruit people. I learned how to build a team. I learned how to do digital marketing and search engine optimization. And I just put all my passion and effort in that. And when you're so passionate about something and you're so focused, you can't think and pull yourself down. You just fill your mind up with positive things, right? And so that's what I did. And same thing with MTV. I just decided that I was going to put all my energy into getting my MBA. And I didn't just get my MBA. I graduated #1 in my class 4.0, and that's because I was like, I'm going to do this. I wasn't a great undergrad student, for full transparency. I did like terrible in my undergrad. And so I was like, I'm going to show everybody that I can get good grades and I'm just going to do this and make sure that I can get a great corporate job. And so I did it. And I think it's just a matter of like shifting your mindset and really focusing in on something positive.
Absolutely. So the podcast grows quickly. You started in 2018. You have some very big names from the start. Who's been your favorite? Well, I don't want you to put you on the spot, but who have been some of your favorite guests, or some, I guess?
My favorite guest was Robert Greene. So I had him for a 2-part episode. He's amazing. I talked to him for like 2 hours and he was so nice. And I've always been such an avid reader of his books. He wrote the 48 Laws of Power. He wrote The Laws of Human Nature. So he's a very popular author. And that episode really help push my podcast to the next level. Once that episode came out is when I think a lot of things started accelerating for me. I just had Seth Godin on my latest episode. He is a marketing legend. I'm in the marketing space, so that was amazing to talk to someone like that. And I was just talking to you offline about how the biggest guests are always the nicest and most humble, and that's probably why they've gotten to the top, because they move with kindness, and people, reciprocate that. And Mark Manson was really cool to have on just because he's a great name. And then I also have to shout out to David Allen. So episode number 5, and I think like number 23, he wrote GTD, Getting Things Done, and he was one of my bigger first guests. And his name on my podcast helped me secure a lot of bigger guests down the line. So I really thankful for him taking a chance on me.
That's great. That's awesome. And those are amazing, amazing people. So in the beginning, was the ask hard? I'm sure the ask it's happening and people are probably asking you at this point, right? To be on the podcast. Yeah. Was that ask hard in the beginning? Were you afraid? Were you nervous?
No, I always had the ambition to kind of aim high. So from the start, I reached out to like big authors. My first two guests were Dory Clark and Dr. Jack Schaefer. And so they're both best-selling authors and both have a pretty strong, especially Dory Clark has a strong social media. And Jack Schaefer was actually my number one favorite author. I had read his book 10 times. And so when I first started, I shot out messages to like 10 different, I knew I wanted to do my first episode on first impressions because it was the first episode.
Right.
And so I shot out 10 different people, Amy Cuddy, I think her name is. She never responded to me. So of course, people didn't respond. People still don't respond, even though I have, so many downloads now. You just got to keep shooting. Like, I think that's the thing. People get discouraged. You got to send out 20, 30, and if you get 2, that's great. There's millions of people in the world. So aim high, the worst they can do is say no or ignore you or say yes. And so that's what I did when it came to my first couple of ones. I just told them my story. I said, hey, first podcast, I've never done a podcast before, but I've done X, Y, and Z. I had a number one website when I went back in the day. I led 50 girls. I have broadcasting experience. I think I can make this a big thing. And I think, if you take a chance on me, when I do make it, I'll make sure to pay it forward and also, make sure to help you. So like, for example, I got Dr. Jack Schaefer on the Jordan Harbinger show after Jordan came on my show, and then I introduced them.
Wow.
And so I'm trying to help those who helped me along the way, as
and
well.
That's what it's about. That is really what it's about, is just paying it forward and making sure that you are making an impact and connecting people and helping people, because that's when really awesome things happen. It's so true.
Yeah.
It really is. And it's just what it's all about, honestly. So let me ask you this. A lot of people are thinking about starting podcasts. A lot of people don't know about podcasts or even know, that it's native on their phone or some phones, right? Talk about the monetizing of podcasts and how that was originally when you started in 2018, what it looks like now, and what you think it's going to look like in the future, if you have a story out of that.
That's a great question. So I think that there's a few ways to monetize your podcast. When I was first starting, I concentrated on being an affiliate marketer, basically. So when you're first starting, you don't have any downloads to attract sponsors, but you can find other companies that have affiliate marketing opportunities, and it can make you seem bigger than you are. So for example, Audible has a affiliate marketing program. So I applied to be an Audible partner, and I got a website that's at audible.com/yap. And I got to say, hey, everyone, this week's episode is sponsored by Audible. If you want to go get a free trial, go to audible.com/yap. And then anybody who signed up, I got like $15, right? And so affiliate marketing, you're not going to make a whole ton of money, because in podcasting, it's really an awareness platform, right? So when you're on your podcast, you're typically not going to stop and plug in a website and do anything with it. Right. It's very hard to get people to actually do that. So you can't expect that you're going to start a podcast and make thousands of dollars with affiliate deals, but it is a way to make a little bit of extra money to cover your expenses. So affiliate deals is a way to start in the beginning. Then once your downloads increase, you can go and try to find sponsors. So podcorn.com is an example of a website where you can see all the different companies out there that are looking to sponsor podcasts, and you can apply and you can tell them about your podcast and your audience and your download numbers and your metrics and things like that. And you give them a rate, and they can accept or decline, and you can do that. There's also little ad agencies, but I would beware of them because some of them don't pay, some of them don't pay on time. And so you want to make sure having a third party like podcorn.com, I think, is the way to go if you're going to do sponsors, unless you know the person or unless it's a very directly with the company and not with an ad agency in between. I think that can get a little messy. I've gotten done commercials where they've never paid me. And so that sucks.
Then you're dealing with their cash flow.
Exactly. Like if they go down the tank, so it's just a little weird. So you want to either work directly with the company or through like a reputable thing like podcorn.com.
Mm-hmm.
So I've made a lot of money using Podcorn, and that was cool. Now I use my podcast as a lead generation tool. So without even trying, I started a business. To be honest, I had one of my guests was Heather Monahan on my podcast. She's the host of Creating Confidence. She's a huge LinkedIn influencer. And when I started marketing after her episode went out, she was so impressed, and she just would not let up on me. I want to be your client. I want to be your client. I want to be your client. And I was like, I don't do this. This is just for me. This is my podcast. Like I don't offer services, and she then I was became her friend. And then I would have calls with her just to be nice and show her how to do stuff. And she'd be like, Hala, your stuff is as good as Gary Vee. I've been to Gary Vee's office. What you're doing and what your team's doing is as good as Gary Vee. You need to offer services. You're losing so much money. Wow. And so then I was like, okay, fine. You can be my first client, right? And so I had her be my first client. She kind of let me use my training wheels on her, and it's worked out great. Now I have 3 other clients, and keep scaling that, and really focused on long-term kind of big projects that my team can take on. And it's the amount of money using it as a lead generation tool, totally trumps everything else. Now sponsorships and stuff, I'm doing more collabs and partnerships to try to build my brand. I'm not really concerned about making money from the commercials on my podcast. It's more about trading. I'll do a LinkedIn post and a commercial if you guys promote me on your app and stuff like that, using it as leverage that way, and just using my podcast as a lead gen tool. Actually, all my clients so far were actually guests on my show, and have approached me for marketing services, not the other way around, because it's just proof. They just see everything. They're like, who does your marketing? And I'm like, I do my marketing. And then one thing leads to another.
Absolutely. Well, and it not only speaks to how amazing you are at what you do, but how the marketplace is really shifting, and the commerce and the trade element. It's interesting. And I don't think that anybody should get into podcasting to make money. That is not the revenue generator of your business. It should never be the leader of that. It just isn't, it doesn't work, right?
It doesn't work. It doesn't work. And I think a lot of people are confused about that. Mm-hmm. I think, unless you're Joe Rogan level, Tim Ferriss level, you're not to be clear in terms of the numbers, it's $25 per 1,000 listeners. So even if you have $15,000 listeners, I think that's only $600 an episode or something, or not even. I can't do, I'm terrible at math in my head, okay. But it's not a lot of money. It's less than $500 or $600. Right. It's nothing. You're not going to be able to sustain yourself even with a big, decent size show. So I think
you really need to know your purpose of why you're doing it, because it is a lot of time too, right? So talk about the time commitment. Then I want to get back to what you're doing for your clients to help with that.
Yeah. So in terms of the time commitment of the actual podcast, if I was just a normal podcaster and all I had was just a podcast, I would say, you need to have at least 1 episode a week. So that's an hour for the interview. I do a ton of research. So it really depends on your style. So that's at least 5-10 hours of research a week for the guest, especially if you have somebody reputable. You want to make sure you're prepared. And thank you so much for preparing for my interview. Mm-hmm. And just the marketing of it. So I spend 50% of my time on production and 50% of my time on marketing. And so creating all the assets, creating the episode card, creating the micro content, make sure that it's uploaded, writing the show notes, all that stuff. I have a team now, but it is a lot of time. And so I think if you are starting a podcast, you should anticipate at least spending 15 hours a week on it if you're going to start one. If you're not going to spend 15 hours a week on it, I doubt you're going to get very far, honestly, unless you outsource everything and work with somebody like me.
That's right. Are you using any sort of Anchor, or I don't know, all the ones out there that you recommend?
I'm using Podbean. I honestly wouldn't recommend it. I was having some Apple feed issues that really pissed me off. But Simplecast is great. I heard for my recording, I use Riverside FM. It's amazing. So instead of Zoom, it's like a HD video, HD audio. I would definitely recommend it.
Mm-hmm. This is so good because you're giving so many valuable resources. So I appreciate you sharing that. So tell us, so when your first client came to you, this fabulous woman, right? She said, I want to hire you. And how did you come up with your offer? Was it the feedback from her, or did you say, I guess I'm good at this, I could do this? Like, how does that start? Like, how do you get it from not hobby, but I guess from talent, like really, really a great talent to monetizing it in a quick nutshell? I know that's a loaded question.
Yeah, I know. I'll do my best because I think it evolves, honestly, like especially with Heather,
you have to feel it out, right? And that's why I love that word, obviously. Evolve is one of my favorite words.
Well, so I tried to think of the things that I'm strongest at. So I had, at that time when Heather hired me, I had built a team. So from the start, I actually had a lot of passionate listeners that volunteered to work on my show, right? They were so into it that they wanted to work on my show. And so almost for 2 years, I had like 10 people, give or take, at any given time that were working for free for me on the show. Then I started hiring people. I hired an engineer. I hired before it was like a year of people working for free, and then I would start to hire some people, and like it kept evolving. So
part-time at that point.
The people part-time.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Now I have some full-time employees, which is like really cool. Yeah. So basically I was thinking about like, what can I do efficiently that's not going to stress me out? So the hardest part about a podcast, in my opinion, is the booking and researching of the guests. Mm-hmm. To me, that is the hardest thing, I think, to replicate and to offer as a service, especially if somebody doesn't have a following. And to me, that felt like for one reason or another, whether it was the people on that team or whatever, I just felt like that to me was the most stressful. Mm-hmm. The easiest thing for me was videos, because I have a great video. I had a great video editor at the time. Now I have like 3 designers and like a whole big team. But at the time I had just like one great video editor, and she was so easy to work with. And I was like, okay, I could definitely do videos, right? I can definitely do social media. I can and some things that I feel like were really easy. So I offered that to Heather at first. Hey, I'll do your LinkedIn. I'll do your LinkedIn only. I'll do your videos. And then every month it was like, okay, I'll add on Instagram. Okay, I'll add on bookings. Okay, I'll add. And now I can monetize every single thing that my team does for my podcast is now offered as a service to my clients. Every single thing I've standardized, operationalized, and now can offer as a service. So that's really cool. But it took a few months to like get it together and really understand and figure out how to price myself. And when I first started, I was totally off in terms of how to price myself. I totally forgot to include my time, right? I make a great salary at Disney. I make a lot of money per hour, right? And so I didn't even factor that into my pricing. And that's a big mistake. And I was thinking, I could never start a business, and Heather was like, this pricing sucks. Like, you don't know what you can charge way more than this, Hala. And so she kind of helped me, steered me in the right direction too. And so it's now everything is great. And like, the margins make sense and everything like that. But you really have to make sure that you price it in a way where you're not always struggling, and that there's enough margin for expenses and do it that way.
Absolutely. And and that you're tied to the value, you want to be fully invested, and you're tied to the outcome and the value, right?
Yeah.
So you are on social media, LinkedIn especially. We have many, 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 many LinkedIn listeners here, probably primarily LinkedIn listeners here. So I've always been a LinkedIn fan from day one, and I know that you use the platform really well. So let's give some tips to the listeners that work for you, that might work for them.
Yeah. So I guess we can go by like topics. So why don't we talk about like frequency? So I think the number one thing is to be consistent, right? So I think if you want to become a content creator on LinkedIn, you should be prepared to post at least 3 times a week to start, at least, right? 3 times a week is enough for you to like people to start remembering you, for you to start generating some sort of an audience. And I think that's really important. Then as you continue, you want to post every single day. And then now, like somebody like me, I post twice a day, right? I was just talking to Shanae Moray, right? I think I said her name right. She came on my podcast. I should know how to say her name. Shanae Moray. Actually, that is how you say her name.
On the spot. It's always hard. I know.
Yeah. And so she makes me look like a cockroach on LinkedIn. I have like 65,000 followers. She has 300,000 followers. Wow. So she's huge, right? And all of her posts get thousands and thousands of likes. she does some things that people say are controversial, but at the end of the day, she's winning. She's winning on LinkedIn. She's by far one of the top influencers on the platform, right?
Wow.
And she told me, because I asked her, like, how often do you suggest to post? And she's like, post as much as you can. She's like, what people don't understand is that every time you post is a chance to go viral, right? She's like, you never know which post is going to go viral, And so she's like, I post constantly. I post 5-6 times a day because I never know which post is going to go viral. Every chance is a time to go viral. So that opened my eyes, because I was always thinking like, oh, I don't want to oversaturate it. I don't want people to get annoyed. But it is true. It's like the posts act independently, and the one can become viral and the other one could be a dud. And you just want to take those chances and experiment. So, definitely consistency is important. The other thing that I'd like to share is the fact that you want to bring your audience to you. You want to actually pull them in. You don't want to expect that people are just going to magically find your content. You actually need to proactively reach out to them and attract them to your content. When I first started my podcast, I had 2,000 followers on LinkedIn. That's it. I barely posted on, I used to post like my HP corporate posts, and I got no likes, and, it was just like stupid. Right. And so, when I decided I was going to leverage LinkedIn, I don't know why I decided on LinkedIn. I think it was like, I tried Instagram and I just really was getting no traction, and I got like a little bit of traction on LinkedIn. So I was like, okay, I'm going to focus on this. Right. And, what I did is I was proactively, first of all, I started with my own network. So everybody, the 2,000 people I was connected with, I literally copied and pasted a message in my DMs. Hey, I'm Hala. I just started a new podcast. I would love for you to listen, blah, blah, blah. That's how I got my first 2,000 listeners, or let's say half of them started listening. So 1,000 listeners, right? Just started with what I knew. Then those people were more engaged with my content because I messaged them and they wanted to support me, and I was up and coming and all that stuff. Yeah. Then I looked at my competitors. So I targeted Gary Vee. So Gary Vee has a huge podcast, a huge following, and I wanted his listeners. I wanted to take them from him. So I looked at everybody who's liking and commenting on his posts. And I invited anybody who is liking or commenting on his post to connect. I said, hey, what's up? I'm Hala. I noticed you like Gary Vee's content. I think if you like his content and podcast, you'll like mine too.
Right.
A lot of people accepted those. Yeah. A personal invite. A lot of people accepted. And then I responded back and gave them information about my podcast to listen. And that's how I got my next 10,000 listeners, And that's what really helped me explode on LinkedIn. It was proactively reaching out to people and asking them to connect. And then it gave me the engagement, because everybody started, all these people that I proactively reached out to would start to comment and engage on my stuff. And then my stuff started going viral. And then I just had random people following me and people who were just interested in my content. And so now I haven't sent invites like that in like a year, but I have 65,000 followers because people are just finding my content organically now. But in the beginning, you need to put in the work. It's not just going to fall in your lap. And a lot of people, they try to go cheap and pay for an engagement pod or whatever it is. And it's like, yeah, I think that helps. I think it helps. But I think, if you're not going to grow an organic community, it's never going to retain, and you're just always going to have to pay for play, and it's not sustainable.
It's so true. And it is a lot of work and time, especially when you really want to be sincere and true to what you're saying. You don't want it just to be like, because I can only imagine what your inbox looks like. I know my inbox, just having CEO in your title, it's like, hi, would you like to buy this? 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 It's like, oh my gosh, like, please stop. Like, but you don't want to ignore them at the same time. You want to be respectful. But I call it whittling, like you have to whittle. You have to just kind of look at the messages, see who's the right fit for you, and then connect and build that relationship in the DMs. But it takes so much time. And I've tried outsourcing for it too, and they just do it differently than you do it personally.
Yeah, totally.
Yes. So do you monetize anything on LinkedIn? Do you have any tips for that? I haven't figured that out yet, but I didn't know if you had any insight on that or where that's headed.
In terms of monetizing on LinkedIn, I think for me, LinkedIn is how I can get new subscribers to my podcast and potentially new clients. So for me, LinkedIn is like the proof of everything that I'm doing, right? It gives me brand credibility so that when I am pitching a client, it's kind of like a slam dunk because I've got the proof, where there's hundreds and millions of social media managers and, 1,000 social media companies out there at least. But a lot of them like actually have a poor social media presence, and it's like it's like hard to hire someone when you feel like they don't even do it for themselves. So how can they do it for me? So for me, it's like proof points of everything that I do works, right? So that's how I use it. But in terms of monetizing LinkedIn, I think it's like a lead gen tool. I think really that's what it is. I don't. The other way that I use it is, I was talking about it earlier, like trading. I trade posts for a lot of things. So, for example, Podyssey. I just did this whole big campaign with Podyssey podcast. So they're promoting me on their app. They're featuring me. They emailed their subscribers about it. In exchange for that, I ran like a contest on my LinkedIn page. Yeah. So it's like doing those kind of collaborations so I could just build my brand bigger and bigger and partner with other people. And so I use it as like a leverage tool. Like, hey, sponsor my podcast and I'll do a LinkedIn post too. Like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And you can go to Hala's feed to see how she crafted that. And the other thing in your feed that I want to touch on before we wrap this up, because we could just keep on going. It's so fun to talk to you.
Thank you.
Is when you threw out the post for hiring interns.
Yeah.
Was, I guess, was that August or September timeframe?
Yeah.
So you knew you needed to expand your team. You knew that this gig is now, going into being a real business. Pretty soon you'll go from entrepreneur to enterprise, which I can't wait to see you do and see how you evolve and grow there, which will happen. I know it is going to. So tell me about that post. And was that your creativity, or was that a learned kind of behavior from someone you had acknowledged?
That's been me. I feel like I'm so good at recruiting volunteers. I don't know what it is about me, but like I'm good. Like that's my sorority of hip hop was 50 basically volunteers. Then like I had the Young Employee Network. Then I had volunteers in my alumni association. So I'm very used to recruiting volunteers and interns and things like that. And so and the thing is, I'm a really good mentor, and I've gotten a lot back from being a mentor and having interns. I've gotten so many people jobs and so many opportunities and really help people's skills. And so it's like, I also was an intern for free for 3 years. And so I don't feel bad also to have interns, because it's like, I know that there's actually a benefit to getting experience. And a lot of these young people, they don't have experience, or they're working a job that they actually don't enjoy. And so I give them an opportunity to learn something. And then after 3 months, if they do a good job, they get a part-time job and they get paid, so it's just 3 months of free work. You get to learn. And if you do a good job, you end up getting paid and getting a spot on the team. So that's kind of how I work right now. It's great because it's like, young energy. They're so excited to learn. They're so passionate. They bring other ideas. They make us better. And they get some structure and they learn. And I really like, it's like kind of like a crash course in terms of being a digital marketer. And then they leave it having all these skills and being way more advanced than other people, because I think my team is more advanced than most social media marketing firms.
It's amazing. It's amazing how many people you found so quickly. And then also how you categorize them into, outreach and research and, the social media and different things. It was really, really great. How do they all communicate internally?
We use Slack. So we use Slack and we're a global team. So it's like my design team is actually based in the Philippines. So I have about 8 people in the Philippines right now, designers, video editors, copywriters, even that help with like first drafts and stuff like that. And then I have everybody in the US who is either been on my team for 2 years and like now is getting paid finally, or the new interns who recently got hired or still interns. So it's like the US kind of team and then the design teams in the Philippines. And so that's kind of how I've been managing it. And since we are a global team, we get to work 24 hours. Philippines is literally opposite time zone, which is great.
7 a.m., 7 p.m.
Exactly. It's perfect.
Too. It's great.
Oh, cool. Great. It's perfect. And so we use Slack and G Drives, G Suite, and Google Hangouts. And so that's really how we do everything. And we just try to keep super organized. We try to have lots of processes. And that's how we've been doing it. It's been working out.
Great. That's great. There are so many wonderful efficiencies out there that if you just, like you said, set the process, make a valued offer, right? And find the right client. You get to choose the client, you get to decide, who you want to really make soar in this market space and be a part of your growth. And it's really just, you're just scratching the surface. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Yay.
I'm excited.
So how can we help you? What is your big ask? What do you want to put out to the universe, even that it's just like, this is what I need. This is what I want to do.
Well, I would love if you guys enjoyed this podcast to check out Young and Profiting. We are on Apple, Spotify, Castbox, Overcast, any place that you listen to podcasts. The show is actually not about me. I'm very focused on my guests, the same way Annette was focused on my journey. And I have best-selling authors, CEOs, billionaires. We really focus on actionable advice. I have a research team. We do so much research. It's not going to be the same stuff you find on other podcasts. Right. So I would definitely recommend to go there if you're trying to improve your professional and personal life. It's a great resource. The other thing, you can follow me on LinkedIn and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I just launched a YouTube channel pretty recently. It's still growing. I have like 800 subscribers or something, but it's really exciting, and I can't wait to really focus on that and build that up.
That's awesome. So we're going to end on this. What's your personal mantra? What are your words to live by whenever you need to refocus or to get going? What's your kind of like personal pep talk line?
It's a good one. How you do anything is how you do everything.
There you go.
So I do everything with 110%. Everything, every little email, every little post, everything is 110%.
I love it. I love your energy. I love your spirit. Thank you so much for being here, Hala.
Thank you. This was so much fun. I love this. I think you did such a great job. Thank you so much. Oh my
gosh, it was great. It was great. The best is yet to come for you, Hala. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Bye. Wow, what an episode. Did you learn something new? I hope so. I am so happy you were able to be here with us today. I'd love to hear from you. Leave me a review and I will be sure to read it and respond to you. Also, if you'd like to email me, my email address is yourock@iEvolveConsulting.com. Hit subscribe, and every Tuesday you'll get notification when the next episode drops. We really have some amazing interviews and tips in the future. Anything you need, I'm here for you. I want you to keep your momentum. I want to help you stay accountable. I want you to stay inspired. I want you to evolve. So please let me know what you need, and I'd love to hear from you. Take care until next time.